This is Remote Ruby.
Have you any remote idea to the meaning of the word?
What's up? What's up?
Hey.
How goes it?
HAML is life.
Oh my God.
You get your lower back tattoo of HAML yet?
It's more like a tramp stamp, but yeah, I appreciate you calling it a lower back tattoo.
I was trying to give you a little bit of like credibility there, huh?
If,
no, I love it.
If we were to get that crowdfunded, would you get that HAML tattoo?
No. Sorry.
Paul, can you edit that to be yes? Can you find Andrew saying yes somewhere? If we were to get that crowdfunded, would you get that HAML tattoo?
Heck yeah. Absolutely. Oh no.
All right. So we'll link in the show notes to our GoFundMe for Andrew's HAML tat.
And we can have someone, draw it for us, and then we'll use that.
Y'all can do that, but at the end of the day, I'm going to take all that money and donate it to Ruby Central. So,
and then we're going to ask them to take it and funnel it back to you in terms of you cannot escape this. You already said yes. It's in the recording.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot about that. I have to say,
was the we can use.
Oh God, dang it! I loved your little shout out in your course notes.
Did you? Is that the first time you'd seen it?
Someone tagged me yesterday, I guess, on it, and I was in the middle of something. But this morning, when I was looking over the entire thing, I was like, haha. Yes.
That's one of the first things I wrote a month and a half ago.
I love it.
I was going to say, for anybody that doesn't know, Jason dropped his stimulus reflex course in early access today. So that's what they're talking about.
How about that?
So tell us about it. How's the initial reception? How are you feeling about it? How much more do you have to do?
Feels good. I was kind of getting overwhelmed. I had recorded all these videos and I hadn't really shared them with anyone except just a couple of people I've been asking advice from. I had one person offer to come in and be like an early adopter of the course. I don't know a better term. And so then I was like, I know Chris did his advanced Ruby course early access and people bought it. And I was like, people seem to be really interested in this. So I'm just going to try this. And I don't know. The Stimulus Reflex community has been really cool and retweeting me and liking my tweets and stuff about the course. And that's given me a lot of confidence. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So last night I was like, I'm going to finish 3 more videos. I knocked them out and published it for sale for $99 and sold more copies than I anticipated I would for early access.
That's good. Yeah, I know. Andrew and I are giving away a copy for free for somebody, which will be a really good, way to chip in. So I'm excited for that.
Yep. I love how you said that I copied you, but I've been doing this.
Well, you copied me for this occasion.
Yeah. I literally copied your tweet if you didn't notice that.
I know.
Yeah. That's how lazy I felt this morning.
Yeah. It's good. I'm really excited about it. This is the sort of time where the community is discovering new ways of building apps, and course comes out at a good time, right around the new magic from Basecamp that's coming out that is going to be, sounds like very conceptually similar, but a different approach. And, so it'll be interesting to see all that, and having more courses and this stuff is going to just help people wrap their head around it, because it's quite a bit different to think about and a different way of, it's going through WebSockets. So it's not exactly like an HTTP request. So I think your course is going to explain a lot of those nuances to it.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Basecamp approached it. The biggest trouble I've always had, even some to this day, is wrapping my head around morphdom, because it tries to be this pseudo virtual DOM, as I like to call it. And it's really slick, but there's just a lot of gotchas with it if you're not careful. It's even gotten me when I've been working on this course. So I've tried to take those opportunities to explain what's happening and why to the best of my ability. I'm real interested to see Basecamp's approach. My assumption is that they probably won't use something like morphdom. Probably going to be more just swap out all this HTML in a frame or whatever. Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, we should find out more next week, or it'll be out by the time that this episode airs. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of chatter about those things. But it's nice that we've got something out there already that we can experiment with and build stuff. And then just like both things will improve as I'm sure ideas will be shared between them and whatever. So it'll just improve the whole community, which is going to be cool. So
yeah, there's a lot of people just excited about both, which is cool. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's a competition right now.
Yeah.
And
just supportive all around, it seems, which is good. Because at the end of the day, this is helping people simplify and not have to write or heavily invest in a JavaScript front end framework or whatever. And so I really like that. It saves a lot of time, and context switching between the two can be really painful. So it seems like they're both going to do that. Stimulus 2 came out, but they admitted they don't use Stimulus near as much as they thought they would, which is why there was hardly any changes, which is interesting. So it seems like that the new magic and this approach with that Stimulus Reflex or Cable Ready does similar things, and it really doesn't need even Stimulus, which is cool. So yeah, that's some cool stuff. I'm excited about that for sure.
Yeah, I like Stimulus 2 because it came out when I had started my course, started some of the install videos. And so literally I was using Stimulus 2 without even realizing it. I didn't even realize that something was wrong until I named a target wrong, because I used the old data-target instead of data controller target. And I was like, oh, it's nice because not much did change.
Yeah, and it's all like backwards compatible and everything.
Yeah.
Julian Rubish has been helping refactor some of the Tailwind Stimulus components and just using the new, like the value changed and stuff. So we can throw like, if you've got a modal or a drop down or a toggle or something, you can just throw data value as open as true or false or whatever. And it makes it
sounds awesome.
Makes it really nice. And then those get callbacks. So you can have any code update that data attribute and that callback will be run, which is really convenient. And it like organizes the stimulus controllers really well too. So finally, it's been a very long time, but it feels like in the Rails world, we like skip these hype cycles quite a bit where it's like, oh, let's do a lot of advanced front end JavaScript. And now it was reluctant to pick up Webpacker at all. And even DHH has been tweeting about, what if we just don't use that and we just use ESM without a bundler? And we'll see about that. But it does seem like Rails tends to try and avoid the hype cycles and only pull in stuff that they have to figure out. It takes a while to figure out a simpler solution, but Stimulus is a good solution for making stuff TurboLinks compatible or with any framework. It doesn't have to be TurboLinks. It could be anything that, modifies the page. So we have some really strong solutions when we do get them. It just takes years in between, unfortunately.
It was kind of ironic because the day I started selling my Stimulus Reflex course, I also turned on React in a couple of places in our app at work. And so it felt very like weird vibes. We do a lot of Stimulus Reflex and recently a lot of Cable Ready, but we've been using Cable Ready with React. So I'm excited to talk about that more in the new year.
I have to say, I felt pretty dang validated when DHH started talking about ESM and Skypack, which is part of Snowpack. And I was like, yeah, I was here. I've been writing modules.
Can you explain the differences between Snowpack's more like Webpacker, but I think people don't totally know where the lines are drawn on those?
I'm going to try. Okay, so Snowpack is a build tool for your front-end assets. So essentially, it's built on ESM, which is JavaScript's native module system. And I'm not going to explain that because I don't really understand it. But basically, if you think of like when you're writing, let's say React. So import React from @React or whatever the heck it is. That's not JavaScript. That's Node, essentially. So you can't just write that. You couldn't put that in a script tag in your application. That has to be run through something like Babel or what have you. It has to be transformed. It has to be web compatible. So ESM modules would let you literally import React from React inside of like a script tag in your application. It's like a different paradigm. And like I said, I can't speak educated enough to explain the ESM part, but Snowpack itself is a quote unquote competitor to Webpack. And the difference mainly is that it is so much easier to like use. There's no massive Webpack config. It's so simple because it has a lot of stuff baked in out of the box. And that is just so beautiful. It's also stupid fast. I think an example, I had a site that was taking, 4 or 5 seconds to compile with Webpack. And with Snowpack, it took under a second. And the way I like to think about it is pipes. So if you think about it, you have all these different assets. And if you're thinking about a bunch of different pipes, they're coming all into Webpack, and Webpack spits out one pipe. And that one thing is like your bundled assets. And Snowpack doesn't bundle. It's not a bundler. Essentially, what it does is it allows multiple connections or multiple pipes to your front ends, and they get cached indefinitely. So if I'm importing React and then I've got some script files and some images and style sheets or whatever, those are going to stay cached until one of them changes. So with Webpack, when you make one change, the entire thing has to rebundle because it's one file. But with Snowpack, if you update your index.js, the only thing that gets sent to the front end is the index.js changes. And all of the rest of them stay cached indefinitely. And the caching indefinitely part can introduce some problems if you're not aware of it. That's why everyone who's expressed interest in it, like you have to read the Snowpack docs because it's a completely different paradigm. But I run my Bridgetown site on Snowpack. And the really nice thing is that the image minification, CSS minification, HTML minification, JavaScript minification, it's all done out of the box pretty much, or with a super easy plugin that they provide that basically has no setup. Yeah, like they're continually iterating on it. So like I've been using it for a while and there've been a lot of changes, good changes. And the one thing that they've stuck on is that this is modern JavaScript. So if you're trying to support IE 11, this is not the tool for you. Because at the end of the day, if you don't need to support old browsers, then you don't need to bundle your assets. It depends. I don't think the majority of us really need to support IE 11. So we actually could be using modern JavaScript, and a lot of us aren't. And that would also dramatically reduce the pack size of a Rails application for example. I don't know what existence was, but Babel is going to compile all these different things for your JavaScript so that it can be used on all these different platforms. But you probably don't need all of those. If you're using Babel preset env, which I believe comes inside of Rails, then you can create like a browser list file, which maybe that's in Rails by default. I can't remember. I know I've seen it in Rails apps.
I think at least when you generate Webpacker install, for sure.
So that file could be a browser list file. It could also just be in your package.json. That's another thing that I've started to realize is that a lot of these files don't actually need to be, like your Babel config doesn't actually need to be in its own file. It can just be in your package.json. So if you like hate all those config files, then you might want to look into that.
Skypack is like a CDN for serving these modules. Do you have to publish to NPM for them to be available in Skypack?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you're creating a node module, let's take the Tailwind Stimulus node module, for instance. There are certain ways you can export that package or that node package to be available for different environments. A lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people just export one thing to work with one type of browser or one type of build system, which is fine. But if you export it for like ESM, then Skypack can use it. And Skypack is wicked fast as well. I can't explain Skypack right now. We'll put in the show notes. You can look it up. It's really cool.
It looks like it's very similar to like JS Deliver, CDN or whatever, but you can import directly from a URL in your JavaScript. So you don't have to like yarn add that package. You can like, for example, on their homepage, import confetti from cdn.skypack.dev/canvas confetti. And that's all you write in your JavaScript to import it. So you don't have to like even install any node modules. They can be pulled through that CDN, which is really cool. So that seems like a really, really nice improvement or whatever over the current way of doing things with your million dependencies in your node modules folder, which is my favorite. I love that. It's so good.
And for this example is on the skypack.dev homepage. If I was to add this to my website, I would do script type equals module, and then I would just paste that inside of it and it would work. And that's the difference between ES modules and normal JavaScript, because this is not normal JavaScript can't read import confetti from URL. So Skypack and Snowpack work together to, you don't need Snowpack to use Skypack, but I think they pair very nice together.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And this is what DHH was getting at. We should be able to skip a lot of this nonsense and just use tools like this to really simplify your development, which would be amazing. So I'm really excited to see what happens with this. I don't know a whole lot about it. I haven't used it myself yet, but DHH was talking about it. And he's one to just push whatever he wants to make those improvements in Rails, where this seems like one he will probably, as long as it's like compatible enough. And if it doesn't support IE11, that's okay. You'll still have Webpacker in those options, but this seems like a really good default to simplify everything for just fighting with doing Webpacker for an admin gem. Like you would have to create two separate Webpacker instances, one for the main application, and then potentially you either inject your stuff into that one or you do your own totally separate one. But then if you do your separate one inside of the gem, there's no way for you to actually make that extensible. I can't add JavaScript to that if it's totally hidden in the gem. So there's no like in between, which we used to have with the asset pipeline. And this, I think, would make that considerably easier. So I'm excited to see this. And maybe that's what I'll end up doing for Madman. I kind of like got stuck at that point where I was like, I don't know the best way to do this with Webpacker at all. So maybe I'll end up just skipping right ahead. Yeah. I think a lot of people get into that. And then the docs for Webpacker are all, assuming your gem for your engine is like inside your same repo so that it can figure out paths and everything. And that's not fun either. So this seems like a really promising direction forward.
I'd love to look at Madman and maybe help you with this, but Webpacker at the end of the day is just a bunch of Webpack config rolled into a nice, easy to use. Like they basically took most of the use cases of Webpack and bundled it into a gem. But the node package is basically more important than the actual gem. The gem like gives you some helpers and stuff, but the node package is basically just Webpack configs wrapped up into one package, which is just like Laravel Mix does. You looked into the Webpack the other day, so I'm sure you know Webpacker is not magic. The magic is Webpack, and understanding Webpack is just a massive hole. And it's possible. I think I'm at the point where I understand it. Now that I do, I can do a lot more cool things in Rails with it. But there's a learning curve straight up to Mount Olympus. But the other thing with Skypack, and I don't know if this is a problem per se, but none of the Rails like Puma and Unicorn and WebBrick, none of them are HTTP2 compatible. The only web server in Ruby that's HTTP2 compatible is it's the async stuff, Falcon by Sam.
Yeah.
So that's step one, I think.
Wasn't Tenderlove working on an HTTP2 change to rack or something a long time ago? Something like that. But yeah, it never quite got there. And then DHH was talking about that as well with regards to New Magic, that HTTP2 doesn't really solve a lot of the problems that kind of you would hope it would. And so they've been using WebSockets, same as Stimulus Reflex and Cable Ready to accomplish the new magic. And the hope was you would be able to use HTTP 2 for that, but it just doesn't really quite fit the bill, it sounded like. So,
well, HTTP 2 solves other problems. Specifically, if you have HTTP 2, then there's no reason to bundle your assets. Because it used to be that with HTTP 1, you only like making one web request to get all of the assets was the most performant thing. But with HTTP 2, that doesn't matter. So you can have, if you think about your chunks, if you've ever looked into Webpacker chunks, or you could basically just like as many imports as you want. It doesn't matter because they're concurrent and they're cached individually. And once you have access to HTTP 2, it doesn't make as much sense to use something like Webpacker.
Yeah, you've got your persistent connection, so you can pipe that stuff over without the delay of another DNS lookup and SSL and all that. It's way faster since it's already open.
And Skypack supports, like, if you want to polyfill browsers, you can. You probably don't need to in most cases, but it has the minification, gzip, broadly, HTTP 2 and 3 caching, minification, module waterfall optimization. You could even upconvert old node packages into ESM.
That's cool.
Which upconvert was a new term for me when I read that.
Upconvert your jQuery.
Yeah, please. No, I'm not doing it
or
today.
Prototype JS. We'll just like go full circle in Rails and go right back to the old JavaScript.
Yeah, you can keep writing jQuery all you want, but if you want your web app to be around for longer than the next 3 or 4 years, then you probably shouldn't.
Yeah, jQuery is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere, but it's only going to get harder and harder to use.
We'll see.
I
bet
you guys
you.
want to bet? How much?
There's not. The thing is, that stuff is that jQuery does is not ever going to break because it's just like basics. And it was like compatibility things for a long time.
Okay,
it's not really
let me
going to change a lot.
rephrase. You will not be able to take advantage of new things that you want. Like, I don't know, if you want all your assets minified directly inside of, I don't know. You can't take advantage of a lot of stuff that modern JavaScript provides using jQuery. And also, now that we have ES6, ES 2020 something, you don't really need jQuery.
No, but what you do need is your old apps to continue working without maintenance.
Yeah, that's true.
You build it once, you ship it, and you never think about it again. That's how I build everything.
Yes, jQuery, the new version.
Yeah, we'll just revive it and just like it's stimulus under the sheets.
You probably could, honestly.
That was the thing I remember when Stimulus came out. I was like, this is like a cleaner version of jQuery. Like it's no lookups. So much of the stuff that was the jQuery spaghetti is removed because it's using the mutation observers. So you're going to have to register your event listeners, but it does virtually the same thing. It's just a modern version of it, really.
There are still times to this day, like I'm a huge ES6 and above fan. Like it brought a lot of really good things to JavaScript. There's still times when I want to go do something that I used to be able to do with jQuery that like I have to a little more explicit version of in JavaScript to get. And it makes me miss just being like $, target, blah, and it just works. I do miss that. I'm probably not going to use jQuery by choice again, but I do miss it.
It's just so much longer to write like document.query selector instead of $ and a selector.
Yeah. Oh.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll do a little tiny library that's just the $ that maps it to document.query selector and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No comment.
Or we'll change stimulus to be instead of an S, a $ at the beginning. And then we'll add those helpers to it.
Oh man. Do you guys know what Versal is? Or it used to be called Zeit?
Yep.
Yeah, I was actually just reading their $40 million Series B thing.
One thing that they expose in a really nice way is like serverless API functions. And I was digging into that the other day. You can actually write them in Ruby. So I had to test this out because it's brand new, and I created a serverless API function and put it up. So if you go to this domain/API, it does cowsay. And if you add a param, so if you do API name equals Andrew, then the cow will say, hey, Andrew. And if it doesn't have a name param, then it's, hey, stranger, I don't know your name. And it's 3 lines of Ruby.
That's awesome. I wonder if that's built on Lambda or something behind the scenes. Because I know I think they support Ruby now officially. Yeah, Versal, 40 million. I'm raising big money. I kept hearing the name Versal and I was like, what is this company and how did they get popular so fast? And I was like, oh, it's Zeit. They just rebranded and that explains a lot.
I've been seeing more and more cool stuff come out of that area. One thing that I really like is that you can create like an OG image builder, your social media image. If for blog posts, for instance, you can dynamically create them off of a URL using like their serverless API functions for free. And that started to save me a lot of time because I basically found one that I really liked. And now whenever I'm like making a new post or like making a new project, I just plug my values into it and I get like my image back. And there's no like, oh, I want this image to be cool. So now I got to find an image and blah, blah, blah. It's like a whole ordeal. Now I just plug a few values into this URL and it spits me back out my image. And you can make them dynamic too.
That is cool. Yeah, I was looking into basically setting up like an S3 bucket that whenever you upload a file, like a video, we'd kick off a Lambda function to go transcode it, to kick off a job in AWS Media Convert, to transcode it and re-upload it back to the same bucket in a finished transcoding folder or whatever. And the ability to write a little function to go kick off an API request based on some event is like really cool. Like it's effectively writing a tiny action in your Rails app, but you just throw it somewhere in the cloud where you don't understand exactly where it is. And it runs somehow. And it's pretty neat as a concept, but it's a tough one to like, if you're building something like this to transcode videos that get uploaded to a bucket, how in the world do you test that locally? You don't have media convert. You don't have all these things to be able to do. So it's a strange thing to give up all your control where you have a Rails app and you own 100% of the stack there. But to go switch to something like that, it feels very strange, but it's got some enormous benefits that we could have 1 million people upload videos all at once. And then all of it would just magically get done and scale up and we'd pay for whatever usage it was. And that would be it, which is fascinating. Definitely can't do that equivalent in a Rails app without some manual scaling involved or, auto scaling, or you just have to like design for it then. Whereas you don't with a serverless function. It's pretty cool.
Kubernetes take the wheel.
Yeah. What else is new? I guess new Rails is out. Ruby comes out next week. New Magic comes out next week. What else is new?
Have you guys looked into Rails 6.1 enough?
A little bit. I got Jumpstart Pro upgraded. I've been on the ball. I got Tailwind 2, got the upgrade to Jumpstart Pro the day it released. Same thing with Stimulus 2 and same thing with Rails 6.1 in there. And they all went incredibly easy. Like the only thing that was a little bit of trouble was Tailwind 2 was needing PostCSS 8 ideally. There was a compatibility build. Use Webpacker from Master and that's got PostCSS 8. I had to make a PR to that to fix the dev server, but all of those have been surprisingly easy. 6.1 and a lot of the Rails stuff for a while has been very little breaking changes and mostly some additional features for the most part. So unless you're using some internal things, like you're building something kind of complex, it's got to get into some of those detailed bits. The upgrades are like super smooth lately. So really haven't had any issues with my upgrades.
Yeah, I see everyone talking about like the deprecation toolkit that's now in Rails 6.1, but no one's talking about this and I'm about to start doing it. Hands down, greatest feature of all time. Thank you, Joel Huxley. is annotated template file names. So now like you can turn this config on, and if you examine like your source, like of your website, it will say begin app views demo index.html.erb and then end. And then, oh my God, dude,
Like
if you're in an app,
it'll do that in like an HTML comment, right?
yeah, in an HTML comment. And if you're in an app where the partials are kablooey, oh my God, like I got to figure out how to backport this.
It's almost something that you're like, how has this not existed since Rails 3 or something? Because it's so helpful to be able to just see that. It is awesome. And yeah, I did the deprecation error or exceptions screencast this week. And for anybody who isn't familiar, you can enable deprecation warnings to actually throw exceptions instead. You can stop your test suite in its tracks anytime deprecated code is called and go fix things right away, which is super awesome if you're doing an upgrade and you really got to upgrade some of those deprecated things, then that's a perfect tool for making that easier. But yeah, this is stuff that the GitHub work for view components has been pulling out and improving the views, which is really cool because those have been as they are for a long time. And these are some nice little improvements that really just make debugging and quality of life a lot better. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, that's one I think that easily slips through the cracks.
There was a gem that was kind of allow you to do it. You would like press like Alt R and it would highlight all the partials on your page, but it would break other things in the app that if you didn't Google and find like the exact issue comment, that you were basically screwed, losing time until you happened upon it. I think this is awesome. This is like a problem I have constantly. So I love it. Thank you, Joel. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot of the other. There was some better like sharding support and things like that for Rails 6.1, but I don't totally remember all of the list of changes. There was quite a few. I'll have to pull that up.
Horizontal sharding, I think, was one of them.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Can someone explain that? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, their description is Rails 6 provided the ability to functionally partition multiple partitions, different schemas, but wasn't able to support horizontal sharding, same schema, multiple partitions. Rails wasn't able to support horizontal sharding because models in Active Record could only have one connection per role per class. So I guess that allows it to talk to a different database depending on the query, which is cool.
Some active storage improvements.
Oh, one of the things that was cool is the destroy associations async. So you can call destroy and then they'll get destroyed in background jobs instead of running immediately, which is pretty neat. Because if you do a destroy that has dependent destroys on other models and you have a ton of models, like you delete a user that has a million things associated with it, imagine deleting a user account on Twitter and they've got 40,000 tweets. And each of those tweets has all these favorites and retweets and replies, and you've got to deal with all that. The destroys have to run all the callbacks. So this is a nice way to do that all in a background job, which is like really awesome. I love that feature.
We tried to implement that pre 6.1 at Podia because we have that problem. Part of the way our publishing mechanism works for our site editor is that we keep a copy of the draft. And then whenever you publish, we just destroy any published pages and rebuild them. But a page has many page sections, and page sections also have associations. We're on 6.1, and I see us using that probably the most out of all the new features.
Yeah, it's nice to have someone do that for you because there's a lot of complexity around Active Record and callbacks and everything that this is probably done correctly. And you can go build your own version that does as best as you can. You may not know as many of the nuances behind the scenes to worry about. That's what makes contributing to like Active Record really tough or whatever, because there's so many edge cases that you have to worry about. And it's complex.
Yeah. I don't know much else about 6.1. I can't remember what it's called. The thing for STI where it's like delegated something.
Delegated
types.
Yeah. Where like I'm about to get judged probably by everyone listening, but I'm a huge fan of STI. Like we use it quite a bit at Podia, and it really like simplifies a lot of our code. But we do end up in a lot of cases where we have these base classes that basically end up with a lot of JSON-B columns so that we can use like store assessors on them to have more dynamic attributes in the subclasses. And so having something where we have like, this is our base table that everything implements, but then we have a table for this other type that has some of these fields, but also can have not just a JSON-B column, can actually have any Postgres column. That sounds really awesome. And so I'm interested to use that, but I haven't got a chance to yet.
Yeah, that'll be super duper cool. I think that alleviates a lot of the problems that people had with STI, which was in general, what do you do the second that these models start differentiating and becoming like they're almost their own models, but they're still roughly the same concept? You could write a concern and include all that in between them, but then you got to have migrations across all those and the base stuff and whatever. But this will make it a nice in between. So you really still will have STI, but you can also use this, and you have all the options now, which I think is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to get into the sharding stuff. Sounds so weird to say. I want to get into like database sharding, and I haven't had a need for it, but I super love that it's so accessible now to a Rails developer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes my database is a big shard. I love that I can horizontally shard it now. I see everyone in this call giggling, so like I had to go ahead and say it.
When I was in Disney, my youngest son was like just having a blast, and he was sitting in my lap, jumping up and down. And then I realized he sharded, and I was wearing khakis, and so I spent the whole day at Disney covered in poop pants.
I was hoping that story was not going there, but I'm glad that we all got through it together.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot of other major things. They've already started on Rails 6.2. You know, DHH a very long time ago at this point, I was talking about the Rails conductor and then just making that officially a thing finally. And I looked at that PR the other day and was, yeah, it's still dead in the water from same as it was like somewhere early 2019. It hasn't been touched since then. Because I was thinking about it the other day of why don't we go and improve you install a new Rails app, and why don't we have a link to the guides and a link to the Rails conductor to just have a scaffold and model generator built into the web, like the UI, so we could run that. We already have the thing to raise an error when there's migrations to be run. So you could have a form that you fill out with a little bit of stimulus or something like that to add extra fields, click a plus button and have a sort of a nested model form thing. You could build that into the Rails conductor and then have newcomers to Rails actually interact with their app to go generate models and scaffolds and stuff. I was going to start working on that.
Or experienced devs.
Yeah. I was thinking about it for myself, actually. That was the idea. I was like,
newcomers.
Why do I have to go to... Yeah, it just seems like it makes so much sense. And I know DHH has wanted that for a long time. So I don't know. I might make a PR to add that because I don't think it would take very long. And it's just that like I went and was like, what is the status of the Rails conductor? And then, oh yeah, it's still kind of dead from where it was in the beginning. So maybe I can help revive it or something. But it really feels like something that would be amazing to have, just like the brand new Rails screen and just here's the link to the guides. Here's the link to go create your first scaffold.
And when you click the conductor, it loads a Flash website with a train that literally blows a whistle and goes down the tracks.
There you go. Yeah.
I would like that.
Yeah, I think we can bring back Flash games and turn them into things you can do at work. It's not a game, boss. It's the Rails conductor.
Yeah, I'm sure we can use some jQuery in it too.
Yeah, there you go. Or we can go all the way back to prototype.js and was the .rjs files way back when before
that was
js.erb. Yeah, I did a few of those back in my day. I'm showing my age.
I'm still surprised the number of It's not that many, but there's still a couple of gems I find, and it's moved out of Rails in version 2 or version 3. And I'm like, this was in Rails? That was so badass. Axis List, I think, is one of them that was in Rails and got moved out into its own gem. I use Axis List all the time. That would have been awesome for it to stay in Rails.
Yeah, it would have been. It's a feature not everybody's going to use, so I can see why it's maybe not in there by default, but it is better
There's a lot
if
of
it's
Rails
official.
features that not everyone will use that are in Rails.
This is true.
It would be nice if some of these were like in the gem file and just commented out like other things are.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
'cause
like-
if you're writing an API, then you don't probably need that. But if you're not, it would be super helpful to like know that it exists instead of, I don't know, having to search around. Like the official Rails, like extracted from Rails gems, it would be nice if they, I don't know, did a better job at surfacing some of those.
Yeah, the officially recommended ones they're not necessarily officially supported, but they kind of are. Yeah, that would be nice. There's so many of these things. I guess it looks like on the Rails Axis List, copyright 2007 DHH for Axis List. That's amazing. That is an old gem.
I saw it the other day because I was Googling it. It was like Rails Axis List moved. I didn't click in it. I just assumed that, this was one of those things that was in Rails because I've seen that before. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head. Personally, I'd rather have Axis List over like Action Mailbox built into Rails. But
yeah, I think it gets more use that way. Yeah. Axis Tree. Oh, if you go to the old page 4 of the Rails GitHub, there's some good stuff in here. Account location, Axis nested set, Axis tree, Atom feed helper, autocomplete. I wish that all of these things were still maintained. Builder.
That sounds so awesome. But
you just got to get on the Rails core team and we'll make you do all the work.
Totally. I totally get why you wouldn't want to maintain all that. Because I definitely don't. But
here you go. You can maintain the Scriptaculous slider.
The what?
There's some old JavaScript for you.
Old JavaScript, new JavaScript, doesn't matter. It all scares me.
Render component from 2008. Components allow you to call other actions for their rendered response while executing another action.
Indeed.
Yeah. I don't totally understand that one. It looks like
I might need to read that code.
Yeah, it's a whole one file from 12 years ago, 142 lines. Yeah, you can go Rails 6.1ify it. We'll just maintain our
RBS it.
Yeah, we'll just move all of these into like new projects and be like, look at this cool stuff that we've done.
When's DHH going to be finished RBSing Active Record? That's my real question.
God,
I don't even want to. The like sheer magnitude is just it. I don't even want to think about it. It makes me anxious just to even think about it.
I don't have anything else. Do you guys?
No, I just got to finish my course and get through 2 more days of work before vacay. So
there you go. Yeah, get to work, man. There's a lot of people knocking down the doors for your course, so better get busy.
Okay, bye.
So the point of this is go buy Jason's course, support the squad.
Shout out. It'll already be done by then, but I think it's super cool y'all are giving it away and you're actually supporting me. Like you're actually paying for this. I'm not just giving that to you to give away. And so thank you all. I think that's really cool.
We just want to help support the community, support other people making good stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
I don't know if y'all listen to Art of Product, but Ben Ornstein, he talks a couple times throughout some of the episodes about how when your buddy makes something, not buying it and like asking for it for free is like a douche move. And his explanation of why was so compelling to me that I pretty much don't ask anyone for free stuff. If I want it, I can buy it, I can afford it. And as far as giving it away, so many people helped me to get to where I'm at. I'm so happy that I'm in the place now where I can give back.
Yeah, that rules.
Yeah, I love that. It's just a good way of operating. Yeah, it's just we need more people making content and like teaching things, and it helps everybody in the community. So if I'm able to throw some money your way to keep you going and keep making some stuff and helping people, that's what I want to do.
Heck yeah. I might start this course later tonight, or wait, what is today? Wednesday? I'm going to start it by Friday at least, because I am also off for the next 2 weeks. So I'm excited to get in there.
Well, give me all your feedback.
I will.
Awesome.
Well,
all right.
Hey, I just realized this is non-HAML.
Yeah.
There's my first piece of feedback.
You need a refund real fast.
Yeah, I would like you to redo all the videos in HAML.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Oh.
All right, man. Get to work. Finish that course.
Later, guys.